Talk, we would like to talk about the Freedom of Information Act as a tool to engage government. It's a privilege to welcome Professor Godwin Ono, former rector, Federal Polytechnic, Oko, and now with the Department of Political Science, Anambra, Azikiwe University, Oka. Prof, you're welcome to Transparency Talk. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay. All right. Just like I stated earlier, today we want to talk about the Freedom of Information Act as a tool to engage government. But to a layman, would like to understand what is the Freedom of Information Act and why should an average Nigerian that doesn't even know anything about it, why should they care about it?
Thank you, my sister and listeners and members of the public. I'm Professor Godwin Ono, MNI, has already introduced my institutional affiliation. Thank you for the opportunity of disseminating this information, especially to the uninformed members of the public. The Freedom of Information Act came about through public concerns, advocacy by civil society organizations and well-meaning Nigerians on the need to improve on government business and ensure service delivery. The Freedom of Information was put into a legislative act that was enacted in 2011. It's also a landmark piece of legislation designed to promote transparency, accountability, and public participation in governance. It grants every person, every Nigerian, regardless of citizenship, the right to access information held by public institutions and even certain private bodies performing public functions or utilizing public funds. The essence of this is to reduce the momentum and the level of channeling greed towards our commonwealth. There are purposes for this. The core purpose of Freedom of Information Act is to dismantle the culture of secrecy that historically characterized government operations in Nigeria, replacing it with a presumptive of openness. The Act makes it possible to make public records freely available. In doing this, it ensures that citizens can access government records and information without needing to prove a specific interest. It promotes transparency and accountability by allowing public scrutiny of government actions. And by doing so, it aims to reduce corruption and improve the efficiency of public service delivery. And when corruption is minimized, because I'm not aware of any society that you don't find elements of corruption, it improves public service delivery. Employment is created. Poverty is made history. And our common concern, which is security, is guaranteed, especially in a federal state like ours. Because when there is good governance, all the excesses that are dysfunctional to the optimal performance of government machinery are reduced to the minimum. The FOI Act helps in protecting public records because it provides a framework for the proper maintenance and management of public records. And public officers are also protected because it offers protection to public officers who disclose certain official information in good faith. It was part of the essence of the Act. But let us look at the key provisions of that Act. In Section 1 of the Act, every Nigerian has a legally enforceable right to access information, records, and documents held by government bodies and relevant private institutions. Then we look at Section 3 that deals with application process. Requests for public information must be made in writing, electronically or by letter, clearly describing the information sought. Assistance can be provided for those who are illiterate or have disabilities. But there is also a time limit for response, as contained in Section 4 of the Act. Public institutions are mandated to provide the requested information within 7 working days of receiving the application. An additional 7 days may be granted for large requests or ongoing consultations. There is fee attached, either by proxy or in one way or the other, because while there is no limit or no initial fees to make a request, institutions can charge fees to cover the cost of document duplication, and in commercial cases, review. Fee waivers can be requested if disclosure is in the public interest. There are exemptions as contained in sections 11 to 19. The Act specifically specifies categories of information that are exempt from disclosure. There are some informations that cannot come under public, purview. One is national security records, because that can subject a country to exposure to criminality and unwarranted intervention of people who are not supposed to. Then information constituting an unwarranted invasion of private privacy, and the records compiled for law enforcement purposes. Third-party information, professional privileges, or research materials. Is not everything that you can expose, because you have the right to, you have the right for access to public information. There are some information you can expose. It will also endanger the public health and public security. In the armed forces, they have their secrets. In the police, the same thing. The DSS, the same thing. And other security agencies too. There are limitations to that extent. And that is why sometimes, even beyond the shores of this country, you still see documents that are classified, that are not open to public, purview. There is a section for non-compliance as contained in 7.5 and 10. Public officers who conceal or alter or deliberately destroy information or fail to comply with the Act can face fines of up to 500,000 naira or imprisonment for a minimum of 1 year. There is also a right to judicial review contained in Section 20. If an institution denies a request, it must provide a written notice explaining the reasons and the relevant exemption. The applicant can then apply to the Federal High Court or State High Court for review within 30 days. Then the annual report as contained in section 29. Every public institution is required to submit an annual report to the Attorney General or the Federation detailing freedom of information request processed. And these reports must be publicly accessible. Then this supersedes other acts that had existed, especially the Official Secret Act and any other laws that previously restricted access to information. Then the Freedom of Information Act is a tool to engage government. In doing so, it promotes transparency by enabling access to government contracts, expenditure details, policy documents, and decision-making processes. The FOI Act pulls back the curtain on public administration. This transparency allows citizens to see how public funds are being used and how decisions are made, fostering trust and reducing suspicion. It enhances accountability. With access to information, citizens can hold public officials and the institutions accountable for their actions and inactions. For example, a community can request details on funds allocated for a project and compare them with actual work done, exposing corruption and inefficiency. I'll soon be done. The threat of public exposure and legal action serves as a deterrent against misconduct. It facilitates informed participation. Access to information is fundamental for meaningful citizen participation in governance. When citizens are informed about government plans, policies, and services, they can provide constructive feedback, engage in public debates, and make informed decisions during elections, for instance. This shifts the dynamic from passive recipients to active stakeholders.
Okay, so just I would like to come in here. So based on everything you've said so far about the FOI Act, would you say here in the country that is actually in practice, or is it just mainly on paper?
Well, the one is that it is on paper already, but the actual implementation faces a lot of challenges.
Okay.
Because already we have a culture of secrecy. If you look at the hierarchy of our public service, you'll find that it's somehow a kind of regimented because of the issues of coloniality and colonialism. Because the structure of public service being practiced in Nigeria was inherited from the colonial masters. And the interpretation of actions within the ministries, departments, and agencies fall in line with what we are asked to do and what we are told, and how we are asked to do it, and the expected outcome. We do not have original input into how a public service should run. So it's a big challenge, and that hinders the operational performance. So that is why we talk of, there was a time we had permanent secretaries. Sometimes we changed to director generals during the military administration.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, and that time I was the PA to Commissioner for Works. So we had DG in the Ministry of Works then. Later we turned to, permanent secretaries. That created its own kind of confusion. because the issue of public service and the structure and how it will operate did not originate from us. There were things we inherited.
We inherited, and we're still working with them.
Upon independence. And there has not been any radical change in the operating mechanisms of public service that are indigenized to fall in line with what we believe our own vision of reality and the way we see the world. If we have time, I give you one example.
Okay.
If you are heading an institution or organization and you are awarded a contract, you are not expected to take anything from any contract. And upon completion of the contract, if you accept anything as thank you, it is called gratification. And that is subject to at least 7 years imprisonment.
The gratification?
Yeah, I'm not sure it has option of fine.
Wow.
Yes. But when you look at our traditional setting, that is where tradition conflicts with modernity. And I say, emele mmadu, are they motivated to do more?
Yes, that kind of thing.
Even that was backed up by Bible and religion. That when Jesus Christ was saying, upon ending a miracle, only one person
came back to say
to thank him.
Yeah.
And we adopted that. That email on Monday, tomorrow he will tell you, after everything I did for him, he never came back to say thank you. But in public service,
there is nothing
as
like
you inherit,
that.
if you come to thank, you have committed an offense.
Oh, wow.
It's a kind of contradiction. Yes. So and we have challenges of poor record keeping. Yeah, it's a big challenge. Access to proper record keeping. In the Kenya Ministry of Youth and Culture, for instance, you want a particular information. I say, most of the ministries are not digitalized.
So is the problem the fact that Nordero, like, what I want to understand is, because most people complain that sometimes when they go to make official requests based on the FY Act, that they are denied this information from government officials. So is it a question of Nordero available or a question of natural in here?
Yeah, one could be that Nordero available to be given. And the filing system, the secretarial sector of the organization lack competence to keep records. And there was no capacity building within that, parenthesis, to learn how to keep records and make the records available. But now we are in ICT stage, and the advocacy is for have a backup of manual record keeping while we electronically, store information, so that upon request, electronically that information can be sent to the person who is requesting. If he's really ICT compliant, that is another problem. Because some people only know about ICT by learning the keyboard. They don't know anything beyond that. And when you ask them to utilize the internet to make a request, they become afraid, and some of them become uncomfortable. So it's quite a challenge. And to that extent, records are scattered. Some will fall into, some will be online, some will be manual, and you come to have a juxtaposition of analog and digital, which does not work. That's why elections are not even working, because we have not decided to adopt a full-blown electronic method of doing things. We can adopt that in as public service and still have a section that backs it up with manual documentation. So that if there are glitches in the ICT sector, we can fall back on that backup. Okay. And the awareness is a problem too. Most people are not aware of what they're supposed to do, the obligations regarding this act. Well, you see, when the act was launched in 2011, today we are still on advocacy, telling people what it is, defining it.
Because a lot of people don't even know how to, don't even know what it is.
Yes.
It's more of knowing how to use it.
If you go to even to the academia, you talk about it, some will just listen. So the most of them, that issue of awareness is also a problem. And when you see those who are supposed to know and they do not know, then those who are not supposed to know,
they know,
will be stuck illiterate. So
because the ones that are meant to know, they don't know.
They don't know, because so they cannot estimate what they do not know.
Okay, so how do we make them know? That should be the
it's through
advocacy,
through a medium like yours, if many of them listen, and also through different levels of engagement, focus group engagements and all those ones, meeting with communities down there to local levels, and also occasionally organize for those who are supposed to know, to drive home the essence of this and the importance of that. So as this is a problem of bureaucracy too. When you seek for an information, they will ask you to write. When you write maybe to the commissioner may mean it to, or maybe mean it to governor, requesting for permission to release that information. The government, the chief of staff can write KIV on that, and that will not come. And KIV doesn't mean give or not to give. Or the commissioner will mean it back to PAMSEC. The PAMSEC will look at it, mean it down to maybe the director. Okay. Director will go to deputy director. Yes. And all those ones. So bureaucracy, before you get one approval or the other, that 7 days may elapse. The 14 days may elapse. And those people who wrote that may not have the courage to go to court, or have the finances to challenge the delay in court, or have the finances. So it is the cost of litigation also creates some kind of hindrance.
Okay. All right, Prof. We pause here. Let's just take a question. We have a question for the callers. And this morning, the question is, do they believe that Nigerians have the right to know how government decisions are made? And how? It's for our callers, so they could call in to answer. Okay. Then we'll wrap up the show. Okay. All right, just to remind you that this is still Transparency Talk right here on ABS 88.5 FM. And we are here with Professor Godwin Ono, MNI, former rector, Federal Polytechnic, Oko, and now with the Department of Political Science, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Oka. We're talking about the Freedom of Information Act as a tool in holding government accountable. All right, call 0808-487-2166. Somebody's already here. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Is it the Community Bank?
Sorry?
Okay, it's nothing.
Huh?
I didn't give you what?
Is it Microfinance Bank?
No, this is not Microfinance Bank. This is Transparency Talk. Transparency Talk is the name of the program. And we are looking at Freedom of Information Act as a tool to engage government. That is our focal point of discussion today. And I said we have a question for you. Do you think Nigerians have the right to know how government decisions are made and how those decisions are made? And we've been speaking with Professor Godwin Ono. So call 0808-487-2166, 0808-487-2166, or 0706-538-1320. And remember that the program is streaming live on Facebook, Anambra Broadcasting Service. All right, in the absence of calls, I would like, Prof, as we wrap up the show, what practical advice would you give someone listening today who is trying to use the FY Act for the very first time? What practical advice would you give that person?
Yeah, I want to let them know that they have the right of access. Every person has a legally enforceable right to access information, records, and documents held by government bodies and relevant public institutions.
Okay.
The essence of that is to put pressure on all these institutions, the ministries, departments, and agencies and other bodies that perform public functions to limit the level at which they channel greed to our commonwealth. If that is done, resources will be available for good governance and efficient service delivery. And that, in parentheses, means that those issues that border on human security, the issues of poverty, the issues of physical security, the issues of unemployment, social misfits and all those ones, prostitution will be reduced to a manageable level, and we can make poverty history.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, this is how we end the program Transparency Talk. And we've been speaking with Professor Godwin Ono, MNI, former rector, Federal Polytechnic, Oko, and currently with the Department of Political Science, Anambra Azikiwe University, Oka. Prof, thank you for coming for the program.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, all right, just remind you that Transparency Talks makes a return next week Friday at this time. Up next is Talkam with Ifoma Akife. I urge you to keep it locked and just dial. Thank you, Prof.